The Genesis text that we heard this morning is one that speaks of drought and famine, desperation, and human migration. If you've been hearing the news lately, you may think to yourself, much like I did, these themes sound familiar. In fact, our text this morning is an ancient biblical manuscript that mirrors a world very, very much like our own. Our text this morning is part of a long biblical narrative of the story of Joseph. However, I want to start this morning by talking about Joseph's brothers. They are the sons of the patriarchs. The brothers of Joseph are the sons of Jacob, a complicated and shrewd bunch, and we'll come back to this later. But for now, I'd like to ask you to imagine their state in this portion of the story we heard today, a portion of the story that begins earlier in Genesis. Genesis 41:56 reads, "Now the famine was all over the surface of the earth. Joseph opened up all the storehouses in which there was grain and gave out rations to the Egyptians." And then Genesis 42 starts with these words. "When Yaakov saw there were rations in Egypt, Yaakov said to his sons, 'Why do you keep looking at one another?' He said, 'Here, I have heard there are rations in Egypt. Go down there and buy us rations from there, so we may live and not die.'" That we may live and not die. We must realize as we come to this morning's text that these brothers are not on a mission of trade or commerce. They have not traveled to Egypt to explore stocks or bonds or even to examine the future of commodities. No, they are there to secure food, so they may live and not die. Yes, this text mirrors a world like our own. Here we have 10 brothers who have walked from the land of Canaan or Israel all the way to Egypt in search of food for themselves and their families. Now, they may have had some pack animals with them. But how helpful do you imagine a pack animal would be in time of famine? Their trip was likely one on foot. Imagine their trip for a minute. Through the desert, over rivers, in time of famine and drought, on foot. Yes, in our world, former Ambassador Tom Hall reminds us that there are currently, quote, 12 million at risk of malnutrition, starvation, and death, and more than 500,000 Somalis, in quote, on the move, all because of a famine caused by the worst drought on the African continent in 60 years. Our text today mirrors a world too much like our own. And if we look at the whole of this narrative, we see the brothers make this trip not once or twice, but 3 times, so they may live and not die. Our text this morning speaks of the brothers' second trip. On their first trip, Joseph recognized the brothers, but the brothers did not recognize him. Yes, this brotherly relationship was, as I said, shrewd and complex. You see, Joseph was known for his prophetic dreams. And as you saw in the children's sermon this morning, as a child, Joseph had a dream in which his older brothers were sheaves of wheat and bowed to him. But being the obnoxious younger brother that he was, Joseph told his brothers this dream and more. These are the very brothers who tore the beautiful coat that Joseph had received as a gift from his father. The brothers who left Joseph to die in a pit. The brothers who had no idea their Joseph had been rescued and sold into slavery in Egypt, or that his dreams and powers at interpreting dreams had made him an executive of Egypt. The brothers, in their time of desperate need, did not even have the thought of Joseph on their minds. On their first trip into Egypt, Joseph accused the brothers of being spies and threw them all into prison for 3 days. Eventually, Joseph decides to just keep one of his brothers, Simon, hostage, while sending the others home with some food to bring their youngest brother Benjamin back, for this would be proof that they were not spies. Each time the brothers make this trip, they do so humbly to beseech the world's superpower for help in their time of need. And make no mistake that Egypt was the world's superpower at the time of this narrative. The brothers have no idea that the decision maker of this superpower is the very brother they deeply and horribly wronged. The story itself is really a setup, and it comes down to this portion of the narrative. A portion of the text in which Joseph has both great power and great choice. Joseph is not an ideal hero in this story. He does play games, imprisoning his brothers. And this not only causes his brothers distress, but when his brothers return to their father Jacob and tell him that Benjamin has been beckoned to Egypt, Joseph's father Jacob is also caused distress by the thought he may lose another son. Joseph is not perfect, and in some sense it is in this text where we see him grappling with his extreme power of life over death. But never in this narrative does it seem to occur to Joseph to allow his brothers to starve. It's out of the question. Even though these are the very brothers who left him to die, who caused him to become a slave. It is as if Joseph, as greatly wronged as he has been, now being the superpower, acknowledges that through his actions and choice, he knows his brothers have come to him so they may live and not die. Joseph does not allow harm to come to those who have wronged him. even though he could greatly harm them and even cause them to die by simply doing nothing.